Hello guys, and welcome to this month's Commander on a Budget video here on the Nitsuhone Magic channel. I just want to remind you guys that my videos are also now being posted on paperchampion.net. If you're watching from there, welcome to the video. I hope you enjoy. If you're not, you should check out paperchampion.net for more good Magic the Gathering related content, especially articles. So anyway, this month's Commander on a Budget is Isperia the Inscrutable, who is a good card, an interesting card. It's one I've actually never seen anyone else ever play this commander, so she's pretty obscure, I think. But 5 mana for a 3/6, a Sphinx, and she has a really interesting ability that I think sort of screams that she should have a commander deck based around her. In that anytime she deals combat damage to a player, I name a card. That player reveals his or her hand, and if they reveal the named card, I get to search my library for a creature card with flying, reveal it, put it into my hand, and shuffle my library. So, assuming I know what's in my opponent's hand, I get to draw cards whenever I want to. This should be here, I just noticed. I get to draw whatever card I want from my library. So the deck is basically made up of like toolbox creatures to search out, or win conditions to search for, and ways to know what's going on in my opponent's hand. And that's basically what the deck is. It has a flying theme as well, so it's sort of a blue-white skies deck, but it's a little more interesting than your typical one. As I always do on these videos, it's divided into a few piles. Here we just have sort of the staple cards that I think are good in basically any blue-white deck. Some of them just in any commander deck, like Worn Powerstone, Soul Ring, Mana Vault. I'll touch on some of them in case you're not aware of them. Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile are both very cheap now and both very efficient removal for white. Cyclonic Rifts, also fairly cheap. It's about 80 cents online anyway. For 7 mana, you can return all non-land permanents to its owner's hands. I also have Azorius Charm, which is the flexibility is really what you want. It can get rid of a creature for a turn, which would let me know a card in my opponent's hand in a way. It can also give my creatures lifelink if I need that, or it can draw me a card in a pinch. Banishing Light, you can get rid of any permanent with it. Dismantling Blow is one that's a little more obscure, but I like putting it in any blue-white commander deck I have. It can destroy an artifact or enchantment, so it's a slightly overly expensive disenchant. But if you have 6 mana, it then also draws you 2 cards, which I think makes it better than disenchant in commander. Oblivion Ring, basically the same card as Banishing Light. Cloud Cover, an interesting card that should probably be in most blue-white commander decks, because it makes any permanent you control, gives you the option of bouncing it to your hand when your opponent targets it with any spell or ability. You don't have to do it, and that's what makes it good. If you had to do it, it would not be very good. Some board sweepers like Inhostilities, Tragic Arrogance, Kurtar's Wrath, which also puts flying tokens into play if you have Threshold, so it's kind of on theme, and Austere Command. Here we have various cards that let us know some of the things in our opponent's hand. We have Echoing Truth, so something you can do basically is bounce a card to the opponent's hand, swing with Isperia, name that card, and then you get to search your library for any flying creature you want. Boomerang, another bounce spell, can return any permanent. Wipe Away, a good one because it's split second, can't be countered, can't be responded to by anything. Rescind is good because it can bounce things, and in its pinch, you can also cycle it if you need to. Equilibrium, anytime I play a creature spell, I can pay 1 more mana and bounce a creature to its owner's hand. Capsize is one of the most filthy things that this deck can do, because once you get up to 6 mana, you can just use Capsize every turn. Wandering Eye is a flyer, so we can actually search for it with Isperia if we want to, but it also makes us both players play with their hands revealed, so you always know what's going on in your opponent's hand. Regress, another bounce spell, any permanent, including lands, so that's relevant. Planeswalker's Mischief makes my opponent reveal a card at random. If it's an instant or sorcery card, I can cast it for free, and that's pretty cool. When it actually hits a card that I would like, that I can cast for free, is when it's really powerful. But even when it doesn't, if I have Isperia in play, it gives me some information. Void Snare, just a really cheap way to bounce something. Churning Eddy bounces a land and a creature, which is nice. Jace the Living Guildpact can bounce things and can also do various other things, but his bounce ability is what he's really in here for. Dissipation Field makes it so anytime a creature or any permanent damages me, it bounces to its owner's hand. And Telepathy lets me know what's in my opponent's hand at all times. This pile here with the 25 cards in it, it's basically the toolbox of options we have to search for. We can search up Hushwing Gryff if our opponent has a commander with an enters the battlefield ability, or we know they have other cards with enter the battlefield abilities in their hand from some other way that we know what's going on in our opponent's hand. Cloud Chaser Kestrel, we can search up to destroy enchantments. Hypnotic Siren, we can search up to steal our opponent's creatures. Pride of the Clouds, we can search up either as a source of putting a 1/1 flyer into play every turn, or just their massive beater. Thunderclap Wyvern, if we want an Anthem effect. Mist Raven, so there's a number of these flyers that also bounce creatures, so you sort of set up a chain where you just keep bouncing things and playing Isperia with the creatures you find, and eventually you just have a huge air force. Mist Raven's one of those. It bounces a creature when it comes into play. Dungeon Geist is kind of, if I need removal, it taps down one of my opponent's creatures and it doesn't untap until the Dungeon Geists die. Archangel of Tithes is good to set a good card to play if my opponent's getting really aggro on me and I need to slow them down. It also works the other way, where if I swing with it, my opponent always has to leave mana up in fear of me swinging with too much. Of course, our creatures already have evasion. Angel of Jubilation, another Anthem effect, but its secondary effect of stopping paying life or sacrificing creatures also ends up being relevant a little more often than you'd think, so sometimes you search it up for that. Windborn Muse, kind of like the Archangel of Tithes, but it forces the opponent to pay 2 only when they're attacking. Karmic Guide, if I really want to get a card back from my graveyard, or if I really need protection from black, I guess, too. Voidstone Gargoyle is kind of a combo with Isperia. If you've already bounced something in their hand and you play Voidstone Gargoyle and name that card, you can just keep naming the same card over and over. The Gargoyle can also shut down activated abilities of cards in play, and that also ends up being relevant. Aven Surveyor, another flyer that can bounce things. Riftwing Cloudskate, same thing. Icefall Regent is like Dungeon Geists, but with a bigger body, and it's harder to deal with. It also taps down a creature. Steel Hellkite's just a crazy strong card. If my opponent has tons of non-land permanents in play, with the same converted mana cost, it's really good to grab, but it's really good to grab in most situations because it can just destroy so many permanents. Angelic Arbiter, if my opponent is, has a lot going on and I know they're trying to cast a spell and play creatures, it's a good card to get to just sort of shut my opponent down. Djinn of Infinite Deceits gives us another way to steal cards. We can give them our Cloud Chaser Kestrel, whose ability will already be burnt up, and steal their, massive creature. Sunblast Angel is good to, if my opponent keeps alpha striking for, not alpha striking because it doesn't kill me, but swinging with everyone for, 15 on their team, I can search up the Sunblast Angel, blow up all their creatures. Diluvian Primordial, if my opponent has an especially attractive instant or sorcery in their graveyard that I'd like to be able to cast, I can search up my Primordial. Emeria Shepherd, if I want to start just recurring thing after thing after thing from my graveyard. We have several planes in the deck, but not a million. So sometimes it'll just be returning them to my hand, but that's still a pretty powerful effect. Platinum Angel, if I'm about to lose the game, obviously. Wind Reader Sphinx, if I really need to be drawing a lot of cards, which is always what one wants to do, or typically. This isn't one I'll search for as often it is one that I'll just hard cast. Resolute Archangel, if I'm low on life, I can search this angel up and gain all of my life back up to 40. Alhamarit, kind of like Voidstone Gargoyle, I can shut down a card in my opponent's hand, and then I always know it's there and can just name it every time with Isperia. I have 3 cards here because they sort of don't fit anywhere else. I guess I could put Zer's Weirding here, but I wanted to mention it specifically because if I play Zer's Weirding and my opponent is down to 1 or 2 cards in their hand, and I know what they are because Zer's Weirding is in play. It makes players reveal their hands. I can basically shut down the game, keep my opponent from ever drawing removal, and just cast, keep hitting them and searching for things with Isperia. They can keep me from drawing cards too, but they can't keep me from using Isperia's ability. So that's kind of a, ideal situation for the deck that's pretty incredible. Favorable Winds just pumps all my flyers. You may have seen me use it recently in my most recent budget MTG deck, where I made an Esper Modern Favorable Winds deck, and that was in it. There's also Gravitational Shift, which shuts down my opponent's dudes on the ground to some degree and pumps my whole team. So that's the deck. It's sort of a toolbox deck. It's a lot of fun to play, just because most people aren't used to playing against it. I will show you how much it costs. It costs just above 20 tickets, 21.40. You could cut out cards like Hallowed Fountain for less expensive lands, and it wouldn't hurt the deck a whole lot. Lightning Greaves is another one of the more expensive cards. Most of the cards in the deck are cheap. I just saw something that was $3, though, I swear. probably Jace. No, Archangel of Tides, also a mythic. So there's a couple mythics in the deck. Jace is $2. Archangel of Tides is $3. But most of the cards in the deck are well under $1. You know, Platinum Angel is close, but it's pretty cheap for a commander deck. You know, when you're paying a lot less than $1 a card, it's usually a pretty good deal. And that's definitely what we're doing here. Now, as always, I will play 3 single game matches against other commander decks, and I hope you'll enjoy those, see how this deck operates. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.